Hi everyone, Emily Hurtado Arboleta here,
And I'm Maddie Day.
and we're here to talk with you a little bit about the FSM Virtual College Fair that's going to be happening on October 21st from 4 to 7. And we actually want to talk through some of the topics that are going to be coming your way, in particular, choosing a college that's right for you. So, Maddie, can you talk through a little bit of your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was choosing a college many, many moons ago, I didn't really have a lot of great support picking out what college I wanted to go to. I knew I wanted to go to college, and I had worked really hard in high school. I'd taken AP classes, and I really wanted to go out of state. And so I applied to a bunch of colleges. And back in those days, you got, letters in the mail from colleges that wanted you to apply. I was one of the first groups of students that would apply for their colleges online. So I did almost all of my college applications online. Um, I did talk a little bit with my high school counselor, but was really focused on the in-state schools. And at the time, like I said, I really wanted to go out of state. So I ended up applying to 6 schools, and I got into 4 of them. And, when it came time to decide, it really came down to 2 schools. One was the University of Washington in Seattle, where I lived. So that was my local school. And the other was Northwestern University, which is in Chicago. And I was dying to go to Northwestern University. That's where I wanted to go. And, it was interesting because my parents had been, supportive, like I said, but really hands off about me choosing where I wanted to go and apply. And when I had the acceptance letters and was like, okay, I'm getting ready to send in my, confirmation, my parents, sat me down and they just said, listen, we don't have money that we can help you out with. We aren't going to be able to, help you pay out of state tuition. And that, the cost of Northwestern is, way higher than the University of Washington. And they just said, we really think that you need to go to the in-state school and really consider what school looks like now, but also that you want to go on and do more school. And I had applied as pre-med. And so, at the time I was thinking I would go on to medical school. And they said, if you want to go on and do more school, you're going to have to pay for that somehow. And you don't want to have, big loans later on. And so it was really, really hard. And at the end of the day, I made the decision to go to the University of Washington. Honestly, I was disappointed. I, felt like I had worked really hard to be able to go out of state. And then shortly after I had confirmed that I would go to the university, I received a full ride scholarship, an academic scholarship. And it was awesome. It was really exciting. And even at the time, I was happy, but I don't think I fully understood what a difference that would make later on. But I will say this, as much as, the University of Washington was not my first choice when I was going, choosing schools, it's the choice that I would make if I had to do it again. It's absolutely a wonderful school. I had an awesome experience there. And I really feel like, well, I know that being able to go and having a full ride scholarship there was the difference of me being able to continue my education and pursue my master's of social work, which I also did at the University of Washington. But I don't know that if I had gone out of state and had to take out the amount of loans that I would have had to taken out, if I would have been able to afford to go on to graduate school. So I would have had a really different career trajectory, I think. So
That's a really good point
yeah,
because I think a lot of students just aren't aware that if you go on after your bachelor's degree, there's really not a lot of aid available to you as a graduate student. So you're
yeah,
really having to look for those needles in a haystack for
yep.
scholarships, and then loans really do kind of play a factor in that graduate experience for many students.
Yeah, yeah, it's huge. It's huge. So, like I said, it's the decision that I would make again. And we're going to touch on this later, but I think it was the decision that was right. What about you, Emily? What was your path to choosing a college?
Yeah, so I would say very similar to you. I mean, I did have a high school guidance counselor who was there, but really they only kind of played a role in helping me get my transcripts when I was getting ready to apply. I believe I applied to 5 schools, two out of state, three in state. Initially, I thought I was on my way to Montana State. I was ready to go out west. And for me, in my mind, I just thought I got to get as far away from here as possible. That was my initial thought. If I can just get as far away from Ypsilanti as possible, that'll be a good fit for me. And it really wasn't until I had some additional conversations after I'd been accepted, where folks told me, well, Emily, it's about 8 to 9 months of winter out there. And
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
really eye-opening for me of like, oh, do I want to be away for that long? And do I want to be in the winter season for that long? And so another big thing that I was considering at the same time was wanting to continue playing volleyball. So I was an athlete like through pretty much grade school all the way through middle school and high school. And being able to continue playing volleyball was a big goal of mine too. And so one of the schools I applied to was an out-of-state school in Ohio, where I was able to play Division III volleyball, and I did get an academic scholarship. But it was a private school. And so because it was a private school, the sticker price was pretty expensive per year. And ultimately, what just ended up happening was it just wasn't a good fit for me. After, a little bit of time there, I just realized I'm not really happy. And, to be fully transparent, I think I was kind of going through my own things, kind of figuring out who I was, what was important to me. And I just wasn't happy there. So I left, and I came back to Ypsilanti that I wanted to move so far away from. And I went to Washtenaw Community College. And really for me, that year and a half that I spent at WCC was, I think, one of the smartest decisions I ever made. Because when I look back and I think if I had spent 4 years at that private school, even though I might have been playing volleyball and enjoying that piece, I don't think I would have enjoyed the debt that I had at the end of all that. And I think it might have really changed kind of how things went moving forward with me in my life, and the things that I had the ability to do as a result of taking out less debt. So yeah, WCC was a really great choice for me. I was able to commute to campus, have those smaller class sizes, pay some of the tuition out of pocket that I maybe wouldn't have been able to do, certainly not at the private school, but at a 4-year public, that would have been tough too. And yeah, after my year and a half at WCC, hold on. I went to
Ooh,
Eastern.
there we go.
I became an Eagle, and I transferred to Eastern, which for some of you might know is also here in Ypsilanti. And to me, that really made the most sense for me. I was able to, still remain in this community, still be able to commute to campus, and, kind of lower my cost of attendance that way. And I was also able to keep my job that I had locally, and finish after those 2 years at Eastern with a degree that and some debt that was way more manageable than it would have been at that private college level.
Yeah. It's interesting, that you kind of brought up this transition of really identified as an athlete in high school and carried that into college, but then kind of realized like that wasn't maybe the thing that was going to carry you through, right? Like it's still part of your identity. I know you're an amazing coach and still, do all of that. And I think it's important. I know I had my own sort of, self-discovery. I know that kind of sounds like, a little woo-woo, but I really did have to figure out who I was in college. And I think I spent a lot of time trying on different majors, taking different classes. And one of the things that I think I allowed me to do that, honestly, was having the scholarship. So I knew, my classes were going to be paid for, my tuition and fees were going to be paid for. And I had, enough left over for like a living stipend. And I felt a level of freedom to try on different things. So in the end, I ended up being a psychology major, and I ended up minoring in music because I loved music. That was my thing in high school was, music and theater, student government a little bit. And so, I found a way to sort of find what I wanted to pursue, but I also had time to figure it out. And I think that that's
You
something,
have it all figured out when you're,
yeah, we
which
just
I think
don't
a
have
lot
it all
of
figured
students think
out.
they have to have it figured out.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I felt like I got this message of, um, like everybody in college knows what they want to do and sort of like knows where they want to work. And I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, totally. And I think there was also a vibe in my high school. No one was ever really talking much about going to the local community college.
Yeah.
And I didn't really pick up on it at the time. But, of course, now looking back, I'm like, well, everyone was so focused on these big schools, these 4-year schools or going out of state. And it almost felt like a culture of, am I doing enough if I'm starting at a community college?
Totally. Yeah.
And one thing I would like just really share with students is that it's really just about those resources and
Mhm.
making the most of it. And does it make sense to go to, like, for me, it wouldn't have made sense to go to Eastern for 4 years
Right.
because I'm right here. Why not knock out my first 2 years at WCC and then look to transfer? So I don't have that debt of 4 years, at Eastern. And I think for many young people that have resources available to them, it just makes sense to look at all of those options and how those resources, how far are they going to stretch,
Mhm.
at these
Mhm.
different schools. Um, and does it make sense to go out of state and maybe miss out on in-state resources that could support you?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm just glad I didn't stay out of state. I think it was hard for me to realize that I'm more than just like my identity in high school.
Yeah.
And so much of my identity in high school was, that's Emily the athlete. That's,
Yep.
I'm always in
Yep.
the gym, I'm always practicing. And so to not have that anymore was really hard for me to kind of adjust to. But then I also found other things at school that gave me a taste of that, like rec sports, getting
Mhm.
involved in rec leagues where I was able to still play volleyball, get that taste of sports that I still wanted and I still had in my identity, while also figuring out like other things about myself. Being able to study abroad, like that was a big thing, getting an internship like overseas. I don't know that I would have had that same opportunity had I have been at that other school. And, there's a lot more than just discovering yourself sitting in a class. And
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
sometimes students are like, well, how am I discovering myself sitting in
Right.
class? And you're right, you'll discover some things in a class, but I think it's more of those life experiences that you have that are like an extension of that college experience that really help kind of shape and help you figure out what's important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm really glad that you brought that up because I came in being pre-med, really thought I wanted to do something in the medical field. And, while I was there, you're right. It's being able to have that time outside of the classroom. And I was able to talk with other graduate students and hear about their journeys and hear about how a lot of them had a lot of debt. And, it made me even more thankful, that I didn't, have that debt to take on. And then in my junior year, I started looking at internship opportunities. And that was something that because of the scholarship that I had, they really pushed for us to do internships. Able to do an internship really helped me see, all the different things within child welfare that I could do. And I was able to do that internship for 2 years and then turn that into a job, which was hugely helpful because when I was graduating, I had lots of friends who were like, okay, I graduated, I have an English degree, I have a communications degree, now what do I do? And I had that job that, really being able to, stay connected. And quite honestly, I was able to do the internship because I didn't have to work. I worked a little bit. I worked at Starbucks on the evening so that I could, have a little, basically pay for the coffee that I bought at Starbucks. Um, but just having the recognition that we have now of, once you're out of college, it's finding that job that can pay the rent, pay, the bills, and pay for you to be able to start paying student loans back. That's tough, right? And
Right.
so, if you want to buy a house down the road or want to buy a new car, all of those things, it depends on how much you have to pay for student loans. And I know for me, being able to look at the resources that I have and really see like the privilege of the scholarship. And I was able to get multiple scholarships once I was in because of the different activities that I did. And so because of the scholarships that I had, that was a privilege. Having that money allowed me to not have to work as much and to really not have that student debt later on. And like I said before, I think it's something that made the difference of me being able to go to graduate school or have to, stay and tough it out and try to, work up the ladder in a different way, which can be great. But I'm so glad that I went to graduate school because that's opened, just a ton more doors for me. And it's an experience that I really enjoyed.
Mhm.
So, I
Totally
think,
different than undergrad.
yeah, totally different than that's a whole other conversation that we could
Yeah.
have about graduate school. But, is there anything else, other kind of bits of wisdom that you want to leave the students with before we sign off?
Yeah, and I think, you touched on something really important. Not only is it once you've graduated with that degree, if it's a bachelor's, associate's, certificate, whatever that looks like for you, once you graduate and you have that, it's not just about, like you mentioned, some of your bills that maybe were already coming in, your phone bill, maybe you have rent, that, but it's also about being able to create and carve out the life that you want. And so I would just say for students, even if you're like in the moment right now where you're maybe really feeling like, I just want to get away, I want a new start, I want a fresh start. I don't care if it's that 4 year big school that costs, a good amount of money. I just want to go right there. The one thing that I would just tell you is just lay out all your options, and in particular, be able to look at that school and say, where might I be 4 years from now? Or five, because it took me a little longer than four to graduate. But where will you be at the end of that? And
Yeah.
what does life potentially look like? Because for me, when I graduated from Eastern, it took me 11 months to find a job in my field. So I
Yeah.
was lifeguarding. That's what I did through college. I lifeguarded. And that's what I had to continue doing because I couldn't find a job in my field right away. Create some options for yourself because many of you are going to be eligible for TIP. Many of you are going to be eligible for fostering futures. Many of you are going to be eligible for ETV. And there's also these different campus-based support programs that have tailored programs to support students who've been in care. And some of those programs come with scholarship
Yeah.
options. So to me, I would just want you to look at what resources do you have available at these different schools and how can you make the most of that so that when you're done and you're creating the life that you want and that you envision, it's, I say, as easy as possible. But we know adulting is tough.
Yes.
It's a struggle for me too. But if you want, if you have a vision of what you want that life to be, take advantage of all of those privileges, all of those benefits of those different scholarships and programs to use that free money to your advantage. Just look at what's out there, use those options, and carve out a plan that, makes the most sense for you.
Yeah, I very well said. I think, the biggest gift that you can give yourself is options that you can choose from. So, with that, we hope that you will sign up on the fosteringsuccessmichigan.com website for the FSM statewide virtual college fair. Mark, October 21st on your calendar, and make sure that you check out all the other pre-recorded videos. There's a ton of videos that are going to be out there getting you pumped, getting you ready. And, as Emily said, there's all sorts of programs, there's all sorts of benefits and resources with those programs. So be sure to take note, when you're checking out the different colleges, who has scholarships, who has internships, who has, work study available, where do you want to go, and what options are for you. And thank you so much, and we hope that you have great success in choosing the college that's right for you.
That's right.
Bye.